Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, turning tragedy into triumph. You'll meet the author of this best-selling book, PTSD, Passing Through Shadows of Death. Her incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, over the course of my long news career, I met several people who I would say, man, they need to make a movie about your life. And that perfectly describes my next guest because they're making a movie about her life. Cindy Vann is in the studio. She's the author of PTSD, that's Passing Through Shadows of Death. Cindy, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Very cool. Well, we have a 15-minute show, and I think your story could probably take an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you didn't have, you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Your childhood was rough.
Yes, very.
Tell us about the early days.
Well, I was born in 1955, and I was born a blue baby, 1 pound, 8 ounces. And those babies back then didn't survive. So God obviously had a plan for me because I was a fighter from the day I was born. And at the age of 3, my mom gave birth to my sibling, the youngest brother, and he was born in 1958. My mother passed away like 3 weeks later. And my father, after Brian came home from the hospital, he put us in the car and took us to an orphanage because my mom had passed away. And for a long, long time, I had really trauma from it, but didn't realize that I had trauma from it. It wasn't until I got older and had a family of my own. So I get adopted by my biological dad's oldest brother, which was born in 1908, was a Marine, very, very strict. And I'm grateful for how he raised me because it gave me my moral foundation. I was raised a Catholic, so I was raised that thou shalt not do a lot of things. I can jokingly say now that I used to think, how many times can you go to hell? Because I used to hear, if you do that, you're going to go to hell. And so I'm thankful for my strict Catholic upbringing.
Yes.
So I grow up with this strict dad, and 1973, I graduated from high school. And I wanted to go to college. And he said, no, you're not going to college. You're going to get a job at our town bank. And I said, well, I don't want to work at a bank. And he says, well, you're going to work at the bank. He knew the bank president's parents. So I went in and interviewed. I got the job, and I started at this bank. And the bank was privately held. To say the least, it was a corrupt bank. They did things that were just unbelievable. Well, I was told that what I saw there stayed there, but yet I knew that I was doing things that were not ethical, so I would go home and tell my dad, and as the Marine he was, he'd say to me, you do what you're told to do. So, okay. So I'm counting millions of dollars worth of money in boardrooms, and I'd still go home and say, I don't think I'm supposed to do this, and I was told you do it. So then I asked my dad, I said, there's a flight attendant comes into the bank, and I'd like to be a flight attendant. And he goes, no, flight attendants are whores. And I'm like, huh? And he said, no, you're going to stay at the bank, and you're going to work at the bank. That's your career. So, okay, I stayed at the bank. But then this flight attendant gives me an application. I filled it out, and guess what? I get a letter in the mail that we'd like to interview you. So I went to 5 interviews with United Airlines, and I thought, you know what? I'm sitting with all these beautiful women, and I'm this skinny girl with short hair, and I'm thinking, man, I'm never going to get this job. But I get a letter in the mail, congratulations, welcome aboard, and I get hired. Well, my father is furious. So I did that for about a year, but then I went back to the bank and continued working there, continued doing things that were not ethical. And this one day, auditors come in. And when I remember when I drove up with my car, I saw all these different cars, and I was like, uh-oh. Now, mind you, I have all these IOUs in my bank drawer, okay? And now I've got all these new auditors, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So the other auditing company, everybody's, drawers balanced out, my drawer balanced out. I had a big vault that had like $700,000, and they just, it was okay. And then we had a bookkeeper that, she was a piece of work. She would come up to me on Fridays, because this was in the 70s where there was no ATMs, no debit cards. Like if you needed money, you had to come to the bank. So she would come up to me on a Friday, because we would close at 3, check out all the drawers, balance them out, and then we'd reopen at 6 till 8. And on a Friday night, she'd come up to me and she'd give me a check and she'd say, can you hold this till Monday? I'm going to AC, which was Atlantic City, which was gambling. Well, Monday would come and I'd say, Marilyn, do you have the cash? She said, don't worry about it. I'll balance it out downstairs. So that was another way I knew that stuff was just not right. So continued working there, and then like I'm getting back to the new auditing company comes in and they see all this stuff, and I'm hauled into an office and they're like, what is this? And I said, go ask them, because I was told never to tell anybody. Well, Cindy Vann at the time was not Cindy Vann, my maiden name, Cindy Ivanitsky, got hauled out in handcuffs. And I called my dad up and he said, you shut your mouth, I'm getting a lawyer. And I proceeded to go down to the federal courthouse in Newark, New Jersey, and I got, indicted for bank embezzlement. So then I get a mafia lawyer and he tells me, don't worry about it. He says, if you go to prison, he says, it's going to be a federal prison and you'll come out a tennis pro. And I looked at him and I said, I don't even play tennis. I'm going to come out a tennis pro? And he said, well, that's if you go to prison. Well, I had a judge that thought I was spoiled, and I should have used common sense not to tell somebody, and so on and so forth. Well, I went to prison.
You went to prison. Okay,
Yes.
hold that thought, Cindy. I want to pull up your website, because it's a beautifully made website, and the website really goes into more about your story. And I want people to buy your book, and I want people to attend the film grand opening when that happens. But you've had so much adversity. You were telling me before the show that you feel like you're leading a movement right now.
Yes.
What is the movement?
The movement, like the book is titled PTSD, the movement is about bringing awareness to what PTSD has done and continues to do in families, not only in America, but around the world.
Wow. And then to compound the tragedy, you lost your husband. We have a picture of Phil. Let's go ahead and put it on the screen. Tell us about Phil.
He was the love of my life. We met in prison. And it was sad how he got there. He was married 3 times before me. I was his 4th marriage. And he came home from work one day and his wife was with her boss in their bedroom. So he left and he went to the local bar and just didn't get drunk. He got like crazy drunk. And he was sitting there thinking, you know what? I'm not going to let her have all the money that we've saved. He says, I'm going to go take the money out of the bank. So he went into the bank just really inebriated, and he yelled, give me my money. And they thought he was robbing the bank. And he never stood up for himself, because at that time he was doing drugs and drinking really bad because of the PTSD. So he figured, maybe just being put away and being able to sober up and have peace in his life. So he got sentenced to 5 years for bank robbery.
Wow. And he also was exposed to Agent Orange. Tell us about that.
Agent Orange was chemical that they sprayed in Vietnam to kill the foliage that the troops could see the enemy. And Phil served with the Navy SEALs on PBR boats, and they were called river rats, and they patrolled the river. And, you know, diving into the river, you know, where the chemicals were, it wasn't like he could go back to the landing ship and shower. It was, you know, it just, it stayed on his skin. And it wasn't until he was 55 when we realized that there was something wrong, because he started to fall down, and his mind wasn't working like it used to, but we had no idea at the time what it was.
And you ultimately ended up losing him to Agent Orange?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I had him in the VA hospital, the Dallas VA, which is a phenomenal hospital, but back when he was there, you know, they didn't know, same thing with the PTSD. They had no idea what PTSD was. They were still experimenting with Agent Orange. He had a neurological disease that even UT Southwestern, which is a phenomenal hospital here in Dallas, they had no idea what was wrong. They sent tests up to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And I remember the day when he passed away, his doctor said to me, "Would you please allow us to have an autopsy done? Because we want to know what exactly it is that he passed away from." And his autopsy was done at Parkland Hospital, and yeah, it was.
And all of this is in your book. Let's go ahead and put the book cover on the screen, because I think this was inspired by God. Tell us about how you came up with the title, and I love it that the T is the cross. So tell us about how you came up with the title.
Well, I knew that the story would be about PTSD, you know, starting as a young child. I didn't know that I grew up with PTSD until I got older and had a family of my own. But then, of course, with Phil, with all the PTSD he suffered with, I wanted to title it PTSD, but I didn't want it to be post-traumatic stress disorder. So I kept asking the Lord, I said, help me, you know, with this title. And my dear friend up in Minnesota, you know, we would talk every day, and I said to her, what do you think of passing through shadows of death, you know, like the scripture? And she said, that's it. And I said, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. And I said, well, I want the T to be a cross, because you know, it was a God story.
It's beautiful. And so tell us about how all of this became a film. How were you kind of discovered?
Wow. I never wrote this book to be a bestseller. I never wrote the book for it to be a film. I wrote the book to help me grieve. And God took it places that I could have never dreamed of. Dear friends of mine bought the book, and they lent it to a doctor friend of theirs. And she called them and asked them, could she speak to me? And so they called me up and they said, you know, can we give her your phone number? And I said, sure. So she asked me, she said, can you come to my office? She said, I would like to buy 8 books. And so I said, sure. So I went to her office and I said, well, can I ask you why you want 8 books? And she says, well, I read this book and this should be a movie. And, you know, my reviews were coming in and I was taking it as compliments, but I didn't take it to heart. And I said, I keep hearing that. She said, no, this should be a movie. And she goes, and I know movie producers. So she said, you really need to look into this. So she gave me 4 names, and Amber and Brian Higgins was on the 3rd name on my list. And got down, the other 2 wasn't pleased with them, and got down to Amber and Brian, and I said, this is them.
Wow. And you have a big event coming up. It's going to come up here pretty quick. Let's go ahead and put the film page. So it's 10-4 Films, which I love that name. And they have a big Stars Gala coming up on May 10th from 5 to 9:30 at the National Medal of Honor Museum in Arlington, which you just visited.
Yes.
What an amazing location.
Oh, it's incredible.
Okay, so what can people expect at the Stars Gala?
Oh my, it's going to be mind-boggling. That's all I can say, because I'm just in awe of everything. Amber and Brian are 2 of the most incredible people when it comes to putting their minds to what they do. They have 10-4 Films is their production company, and we also have a 501c3 that is called Legacy Lens. and that is for this film. And when I think of the word legacy, that's what this is about. This is a legacy.
And the tickets are still available, so
Yes.
if they go to the 10-4 Films website, they can get tickets, I'm sure. And you're going to have a lot of veterans there.
Oh, yes, yes.
And
We're going to have Navy SEALs there, incredible guests, and the guest lineup, it just blows me away. The mayor of Arlington, the widow of Chris Kyle, the Navy SEAL, Taya Kyle will be there. Just incredible.
Wow. So in the final minute or so, I want you to look into the camera on the left and give some encouragement to the person who's struggling, because we all have struggles. But what I see in your eye is just this gleam and this love for life, and with all the adversity that you've experienced, that certainly could have been diminished. Your light could have dimmed. Mm-hmm. Talk to the person who's struggling and give them some words of encouragement.
I chose to be better instead of bitter. Life is tough, and it's tough for all of us. We are all subjected to trauma, whether it is ourselves or someone in our family or friends. And God commands us to love one another and help each other. And that's what this movement is about. It's to bring hope to the hopeless, because we live in a hopeless society, a hopeless world, and that's what our mission is with this movement, is to bring hope. Bring hope to your neighbor, bring hope to your family. Our story starts at home, my story, your story. And we can be better instead of bitter if we just lay down compassion, love one another, and know that hope is out there. And we have resources, and that's what we're excited about for this gala, is to let people know there's going to be about 250 or 300 people there. It's going to be a room filled with love and hope and compassion, and it's exciting. And I really hope that I get to see and meet a lot of people that can go do what we're planning on doing, the movement.
Wow, what a great way to end the show. We're also going to leave you with her website, which is cindyvann.com, the great Cindy Vann. Thanks for sharing your heart and your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.